The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star. Now, your hosts, Christy Scales, Aisha Morrison, Nicole Hutchison, and Jess Navarez.
Hello. Welcome into Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys in the SWBC studio. I'm Nicole Hutchison, alongside Aisha Morrison, Jess Navarez, and Miss Christy Scales. Ladies, it is not a victory Monday, unfortunately. The Cowboys fall in Buffalo 31-10. Ending their 5-game win streak. How y'all feeling about this? I thought Jazz just played it. No, sorry. So, I don't know if I'm hearing things. My bad. Sorry, y'all.
Traumatized.
But no, how are y'all feeling after this loss? I mean, we can kind of dive into all the details of what happened, but just how y'all feeling about this loss? I can start with you, Christy.
Just so disappointed, and I think that Coach McCarthy earlier laid it out very well, just talking about losing the tackling battle, losing the big play battle, and playing poorly above the 2.3.
Yes.
And that resulted in big plays for Buffalo, and not just in the air, but on the ground when those scrums are moving 8 to 12 yards. I mean, give me a break. So it was very frustrating and disappointing to watch from the sideline. There were a lot of Cowboys fans that paid a lot of money to make their way into that game, and they were full throat pregame and didn't have anything to cheer about during the game and afterwards. But that was the locker room afterwards, and the ride home was similar to after San Francisco.
Wow.
Because they knew that they got whooped.
Yeah.
You know, in all phases. And so the frustrating thing is it's the mistakes. It's the penalties that are coming that continued those drives for Buffalo, and there were opportunities, to get Buffalo off the field. And again, now they're aggressive penalties. They're not, pre-snap, but still, it's just very frustrating and disappointing.
Yeah, I think what's frustrating about it is that the downfalls that created the loss are downfalls that have come to haunt them once again. And they're the same issues we're talking about once again. And this goes back to even last year during the playoffs. And so I think that's what's so frustrating is that they're repetitive issues that continue to just plague this team and show them at their worst. The run defense, a big topic that we'll talk about during this this episode. Penalties, Christy, to your point, the Cowboys were had the fourth most amount of penalties last season when everything came down. They lead the league right now in penalties, and that's been a continuous topic of conversation that is beating a dead horse at this point. But every single long penalty, 3 specifically, extended the Bills' drives, and they capitalized on them and put them in a deficit early. There was really no coming back from that. And to me, it's frustrating because this team is better than that. You've seen this team be better than that. And at this point, the road losses and not being able to win on the road, it's ironic that they lose on the road because now you're talking about playoff seeding, how it impacts you. Guess what you're probably going to have to do? Play on the road. And so it's just so frustrating to have the same conversations come up over and over again. And even more frustrating because guess what was not a factor in that first half like we thought? Weather. So there was no excuse to not at least have a productive first half.
Yeah. Preach.
Yeah, Go ahead.
Your turn.
Well, first I want to say I think as an analyst, it's okay to admit when you were wrong, and I felt like there were several things in my analysis from last week that I didn't see this coming, and they didn't seem I think the Bills have started to run the ball effectively as of late.
Yeah,
and their offensive line they've had the same starters all season long.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the way that they just won the line of scrimmage in this game is something that I haven't seen. I haven't seen the Cowboys defensive and offensive line not win in this way before. And to Mike McCarthy's point, he mentioned finishing and not playing well above the 2.3. I'm telling you right now, I wrote it down. And went back and watched the game. I knew from the first drive when they pushed James.
Yeah.
When I saw that,
Like, uh-oh.
absolutely.
I had the same feeling. I'm like, here. And the crowd's going crazy. It
Right.
energized the home crowd. And and all these Cowboy fans behind the bench that were holding the "Here we go" signs, handmade signs. I was thinking, here we go,
Yeah.
but not in a good way.
Yeah, it just, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, they legs not under them today.
Yeah.
And I immediately got worried.
If you just look at the different possessions, Dallas didn't even get inside the Buffalo territory only one time. That was until under 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Man, they played keep away so good.
They really
so
did.
good.
Because when you
Horrible.
think about this and if
Yeah.
you can play it that well, you're going to play it that well. And to Jess's point, we've talked about the run defense. I personally think the run defense has taken strides in the right direction.
Yeah.
But you've seen when they've played some of these teams that can run the ball, San Fran, Arizona, Buffalo, you got Miami, Detroit coming up. It's 150 plus yards, and so that's like a glaring thing. And so I think there's some discussions we have to have, and I'm sure we'll have them later in this. But as far as like the overall team, I will say, listening to the guys, I like that everybody took accountability.
Oh, yeah.
Because baby,
Yeah.
everybody was bad. Everybody was not playing up to their standard, as they say, but it was frustrating. It was disappointing, and I had my snacks ready after the second quarter. I was chilling. I was like, y'all ain't about to stress me. Y'all ain't about to ruin my whole day.
Nicole, this is your first year with Cowboys broadcasting, so let me ask you, at what point in the game, whether it's San Francisco or this one, where you know it's not going the Cowboys' way, do you start feeling sorry for yourself, like, oh, it's going to be a tough week this week? In terms of, like,
I'm not
you
gonna
know,
lie to
like
y'all.
with players
Yeah.
and with fans, you know.
Yeah, so I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. At the end of the first quarter is when I was like, yeah, this reps. And I could just tell, like, basically every possession, they just didn't look like that Cowboys team we've seen the past 5 weeks. And it was just frustrating for me because I'm like, dang, this team about to be good. They about
Yeah,
to
you've
be,
been spoiled.
I've
You've
been
been spoiled all year.
all year. So it was disappointing for me because I'm like, dang, I really had hopes for this team to go out there, and this was a chance for them to go out there and prove and continue to prove that they can beat really good teams. And Buffalo, of course, they were 7-6 coming in. They looked like
much
they weren't a
better
good
than
team
that.
on paper, but
they're
they are
much
a
better.
much better team on the field. So it was kind of disappointing for me. I mean, what point did you kind of get frustrated on the sidelines?
Oh well, like I
Christy?
said, that here we go when the scrums kept moving. No, I thought the biggest play of the game, the one that just
Shifted everything.
shifted it was the Sam Williams roughing the punter, because here's the thing.
The collective lets me know
Well,
right
no,
there.
remember at that point, so it's late in the first quarter, the Cowboys are trailing 7-0.
Jess is like,
So they have a chance to get them off the field, get the ball, and then if they score, then it's even, or at least it's a one possession game.
Yeah.
So instead of getting them off the field, you've given them a first down. And then they, just like the DeMarcus Ware penalty in the first possession, extended that play, and instead of settling for a field goal, Buffalo gets the touchdown. On this particular one, I think that was the Cook's touchdown catch early in the second quarter. That drive extended late first quarter into second quarter. It was 14-0, and really not a lot looking back at that point. And then just from I was right even along the line of scrimmage with Sam Martin, the punter, for Buffalo, how he got that kick away, how Sam Williams didn't get that ball. I mean, he was, I don't know that I've ever seen a rusher get on a punter that quickly, but the fact that he kind of jumped and angled trying to avoid contact with the punter, take him out. As long as you get the ball, you can do whatever you want to do to that punter, as long as you touch the ball. But it's like, oh man, and as soon as it was obvious, once the ball got away, I'm like, here comes the flag.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was the right call. And I know that John Fossil will be speaking later today. I'm sure there are coaching points, probably not leaving your feet or playing the ball and not trying to avoid it. But I just thought that after that, it's like, this is not the day.
Yeah.
We're talking penalties. You know how I get about this. What's really frustrating about that penalty specifically is, yes, that turned the tide. And to go back to your point, Nicole, I knew that was reps. And I hate to admit that, because I was sitting there and I already started writing my story of Cowboys lose to the Bills, and I hated that, because this is a team that we pride on being resilient and pride on fighting back, and they just looked like they were getting punched in the mouth so much at that point, and that was the final blow that took them out to be deflated. And you just could see it in everybody's faces. What's frustrating about that specific penalty, mentioned earlier, Cowboys lead the league in penalties. You look at the names of the players, and, just saying, this is all here if anyone wants to go look at this. So far, Tyler Smith has 9 penalties this season, leads the team. And then second...
Key holding penalty yesterday,
but second is Sam Williams with 7. And what's frustrating for me about that penalty specifically is Sam has an opportunity to do something so special on special teams. And I really hope going forward he learns from that moment and we don't see that ever again, because he has a very, very exciting opportunity to be his size, to play gunner. He has to be more disciplined in those moments if he wants to continue to get those opportunities.
Yeah, well, he makes a lot on defense too. I mean, in terms of proportion of his number of snaps and the number of penalties, it's not proportionate. And so he's just so talented. But it usually is those kinds. It's not necessarily the pre-snap. It's the aggressive penalties. But it's
we love the aggression, but you have to walk the tight line of being smart and disciplined and knowing when to do it. And the jump just. I could not believe what I was watching. Because it was just not necessary. But that penalty, to go back to both of y'all's points, yes, that was the nail in the coffin for me too, was watching that.
So if you're Mike McCarthy, how do you, we've seen this team bounce back, like he mentioned, so he has a lot of confidence in the way that they will respond, but losing a game like this at this point of the season, if you're Mike McCarthy, what do you tell your guys?
Well, I wrote this down listening to his presser yesterday, and it was just the vibe that I got. Respectfully, my background has taught me to read between the lines, and so I do. And so I was listening to him, and listening to his presser yesterday, it really gave, it's not you, it's me. And obviously we've heard that in a relationship term, but the way that he was talking about,
I've heard that. Yep.
Oh my God.
have mercy on our souls.
I had to lighten up the mood a little bit.
That's a different show.
Yo,
After Hours.
hey,
with Aisha.
we are sponsored by Jigsaw, so listen.
True.
But no, we've heard that.
We love a good dating app.
And when I say that, I heard him say it even in his presser today. He's not trying to take away from anything that they did, because Joe Brady schemed it up. You got to give those guys a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
They came out with a great game plan, and they executed it to the fullest. But when you talk about not finishing above the 2.3, not being able to sustain drives, the penalties, things of that nature, not hitting on the big plays when they were there, that could have helped you out, because that's what I knew. That Brandon Cooks?
Yeah.
I was like,
that
was your shot. That was a big shot to get them out of that shell, or to have them at least second guess it. I was like, okay, their game plan is working. I don't know if we have a counter for this, and what's going to happen at that point. So for me, I feel like what he's been telling us since last night is we didn't play to our standard, because we've seen this team play well.
Yeah.
But I will say that there are some conversations that need to be had about some of this run defense in general, because it's showing up in these big games with these teams that can run the ball effectively. Because not that many teams have chosen to just run the ball like that.
Yeah.
This team chose to run the ball like that.
And they weren't going to stop.
And but you never gave them a reason to either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this was a collective loss. But I do think you got to, what Michael say? And we're going to get copyrighted? Looking in the man in the mirror. That. Somebody has to glance at themselves.
Before I knew what you're doing, I thought you were talking about Mike McCarthy. I was like, why are you calling him Michael?
Oh, no.
I got it.
The GOAT.
Yeah, we got it.
Have we ever seen Michael Jackson and Mike McCarthy? Had we ever seen them in the room at the same time?
Look.
It could be.
It could.
I don't know.
Listen, I don't ever want to see Mike moonwalking.
I don't either.
But no,
like he
I think we do. There's some conversations to be had and some reevaluations. And even though it's this late in the season, I don't care.
Yep.
This can't happen again. This has happened to you too many times.
Yeah. You thought you learned your lesson after San Francisco, and then again, to
History
Jesse's point,
repeats
talking about the
itself.
same thing. What do you think of Mike saying that he thought that the loss at Buffalo was not an effort issue but a finish issue?
I agree. Finishing
about that
blocks,
one.
finishing tackles, sealing, containing the edge. I'm telling you right now, going back and watching that tape hurt me because it is about finish. It was a lot of it was about finishing plays, and I just him saying it that way. I get it. I get it, but
I think it goes hand in hand with effort.
Right.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
Yeah,
finishing
it
goes hand in hand with
it's
effort
semantics.
because
Yep.
that's just me. So I think it's
I'm
kind
right
of
there
a
with
mix
you.
of both.
I think you have to put in effort to finish something.
Hello.
And I think at some point they stopped putting in the effort that
Yep.
they knew they needed to put in.
Yep.
I'm not saying
You
right
gotta
away.
I'm
not saying right away.
Careful with.
Well,
I don't think it can be.
I'm not saying right away because they came out of the gates and you could see the fight and you could see the fight in everybody and there was bright moments and then it was just after a while it was you come out of halftime and there wasn't the adjustments needed. There wasn't the effort put in.
There wasn't a
you
sense
needed.
of urgency.
Right. And I'm not saying there was no effort. They went
Yeah.
out there, they didn't try. I'm saying there wasn't enough effort to actually be able to finish at some point. And they were getting punched in the mouth. And look, this is a fourth quarter team. The Cowboys statistically come back in the fourth quarter. And I think they're a team that if they're trailing, they can come back. They always are in the game. I don't count them out at any point. But we all just talked about it. At the end of the first quarter, we were like, ooh, I think this is pretty much done. That's very uncharacteristic because
Yeah.
there wasn't the normal fight that they have in them. They're sitting there. We talked about this being a team that bullies the bully back, and they weren't doing that. So I don't think there was enough effort when it needed to be had where they had a chance to pull themselves out and get back in the game.
Well, I think there is a such thing as reckless effort,
That's fair.
and I don't even know if reckless is the word that I'm looking for, but when you watch the game, there are times that there's effort being shown, but you're not playing your assignment.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is,
But you're not playing your role. You're not
Right.
filling your
Effort
gap.
in the wrong spots.
You're not.
You're not setting the edge. You're
So
not, yeah.
So to your point, I think coaches look at effort differently because
Yes.
you've been
Yeah.
coached to play a certain way, or to fill
That's
to fill your role.
Yeah.
And your effort is going other places.
Well, and that's
or
the
looking
thing.
for
When you're
other
falling
things.
behind, you're trying to do what you can do to get everything back in it. And that's when you lose discipline, the gap integrity or things like that because you're trying to do more than what you're supposed to do, you know, in terms of, I got to make a play. I've got to make a play. No, you do your role and you count on the other guys to make the play.
Yeah, I also think there is something to be said about the fact that your game plan, it didn't
It was a
initially
surprise.
It didn't initially work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I said it's on everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do think you gotta. I'm telling you, because at some point in time, you came out there offensively. You tried to do some things. Okay, it didn't work at first, but you did see something. They got some things going in the run game, right? You got the penalty that shut your things down or whatever. Okay, but you're figuring some things out or whatever the case may be. Defensively, when that thing got bad, it just got bad because there's just not much you can do at that point.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering what the guys were thinking and just how they felt because it's deflating when you're
Yeah.
when you're getting driven on like that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, and I looked at this Bills offensive line. They have gone power in spots in games. They have not gone power like that in a game. It's a lot of horizontal stuff and them bouncing to the edge, but to just run up the A gap the way they did and to seal off the edge the way they did, and like you said, it's the not finishing tackles. It's the guys falling off of tackles and the angles and stuff. Yo, it's hard. I know it's hard to keep playing football when you feel like that, but at the same time, I was just looking for somebody to step up or just somebody to step in, and it just never happened.
There was one thing that they did, and they did it just a small handful of times, but generally with your 5 offensive linemen and you bring in an extra offensive lineman to be, almost like an extra tight end, you usually see that on like short yardage and stuff. It's usually, but for this one, they did it a couple times when they were throwing the ball, and it was over on Micah's side. So Micah was not having to defeat just the right tackle and a tight end. He was having to defeat 2 offensive linemen.
It was
really interesting.
Fantastically schemed. They did.
They're fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
They're fighting to keep their season alive, and we talk about this all the time. Like, teams take the Cowboys so serious as a way to, 1, get your motivation back, boost your morale in the building. 2, they are fighting for their lives right now in Buffalo. And I love that McCarthy pointed this out, saying, when we lost Leighton and we lost key guys in our scheme, it takes you a couple of weeks to kind of get your feet back and get your balance back with how things are readjusted without them. And Buffalo just went through that. He said, and now you're seeing them kind of readjusted into having those key losses and playing without them. So I thought that was important to note today, too.
All right, we're going to dive more into this game coming up right after the break. You're watching Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll be right back.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby! The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Sorry, I was eating a cookie. 'Tis the season for youth football and dance camps presented by Invisalign. Don't miss your chance to learn from the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and former NFL players at AT&T Stadium on December 22nd and 23rd. Celebrate the holidays with the Cowboys. Register today at dallascowboys.com/camps, and you might get to see someone you know there.
On Friday, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Saturday, we'll be flying to Miami because with the Christmas Eve game in Miami on Sunday, nothing says Yuletide cheer like South Beach.
There you
So,
go.
can't wait.
Christmas is this weekend?
Yeah.
Christmas Eve is Saturday or Sunday?
Christmas Eve is on
Christmas
Sunday.
Eve is Sunday.
Christmas
so
Day is
the
Monday.
Cowboys Christmas Day is
Christmas
Monday.
Eve.
So Cowboys play at Miami on
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve afternoon.
So get your shopping done, because if you use Amazon Prime, like I did this morning, panic shopping, realizing how close Christmas was, you're running out of time to get it here on time.
I need some ideas for my dad for Christmas, y'all.
I honestly can't believe that it's already Christmas.
Time flew.
DallasCowboys.com, click Pro Shop.
Yeah.
And everything will come up.
Or you
He
can
don't
go to
want
the
that.
one
He
over
don't
here at
want
the
that.
store.
or just walk outside, turn
daddy.
left, and walk 30 yards, and you're right there.
Dad, if you're watching this, that's not what I'm doing after this.
My daddy wants some Bears gear. But anyway.
Well, that's a longer walk
I
to
know.
Chicago.
Yeah, you might have to walk for a minute.
All right, ladies. 'Tis the season for Christmas Eve. 'Tis the season, hopefully, for a Cowboys win on Sunday. But for now,
They need it.
Hope so.
They need it. Let's go ahead and recap this game against Buffalo. Let's talk about this defense. Y'all hit it on the nail about this run defense and the way that they struggled. James Cook, 179 of the 266 rushing yards from this Buffalo Bills team. What went wrong?
He
y'all?
he looks
what
like an
happened, y'all?
all-pro against the Cowboy
He did.
defense. I think the thing is the 12 missed tackles have been cited by Dan Quinn and by Mike McCarthy today. So losing the battle, one of the 3 areas that Mike McCarthy talked about was the tackles. And
Big
12
plays,
to broken tackles. 12 that Buffalo had. The Cowboys offense only broke 6 tackles, and that is not representative of what has happened this year for the Cowboys. So far, the Cowboys are plus 90. Their differential with opponents for the year. So it was an uncharacteristic game for the Cowboys. But Aisha mentioned something before the break, and that had to do with the edge and perimeter. I think that when you say, oh, well, the Cowboys were without Jonathan Hankins, and so Mozzie Smith had to step in as a starter for Hankins. You had Carl Davis, who was elevated from the practice squad, so those two guys got a lot more reps, and certainly Mozzie with his first NFL career start. But it wasn't just up the middle, it was stuff around the perimeter.
Yes.
So you can't just point your finger at defensive tackle and say, this is it. This was as Mike McCarthy said today, there were no game balls to spread around to anybody this week.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what James Cook was doing, and he's just such a slippery runner. And nobody could tackle him. And I think when you go back and you've watched the last couple of weeks when he's been finding his groove, you notice that about him. That's his run style. He's a very fast, physical, slippery runner. And it is uncharacteristic. We just talked about earlier last week how this Cowboys defense prides themselves on being able to tackle and tackle well, but that yak yardage came back to haunt them in this game. James was pushing for everything and more. And no, I mean, yeah, the run defense is concerning, especially when you're talking about we don't know a timeline on Jonathan Hankins yet. But like you said, Christy, it's not just that absence that you can really blame for this. I think something that was brought up today in the press conference was not being stacked enough in the box with the linebackers, kind of the size differential there that's lacking with the linebackers. And if that's a concern, if that's kind of a reason you can dwindle it down to. But also, Aisha, you talked about this last week, the safeties. I think the safeties were struggling a little bit in this game, and it was one of those games that I wanted to see more fight. Obviously, they were without Malik Hooker, so that adds a little bit more of a mix into things as well, because I think people forget he was out. And it's just I want to see more fight overall from this team to fight the run defense and finally put that discussion to bed.
Just one thing about Malik Hooker. Let me just take you to early in pregame. Generally, when you take the first bus with the team, you get there about 3.5 hours to the stadium for the away games. And so usually, like Tyron Smith is out on the field early. It used to be Zeke out there doing that. Well, anyway, it was different yesterday because Malik Hooker was out there just in sweats and tennis shoes. And he was accompanied by, like, Al Harris, his position coach, and Joe Witt, and a couple of the trainers. And he's out there just trying to do some, basically, agility drills. And you could see that when he would go to cut, there appeared to me to be discomfort. I was close enough to watch, but I wasn't listening in. I had headphones on. But, the thing with Malik was he missed practice last Wednesday and Thursday and then was limited on Friday. So technically he was not technically, but officially listed as questionable coming into the game. But I think that they were really hopeful that he would be able to play. But when he wasn't able to do that kind of lateral movement comfortably in the pregame is when they obviously made him inactive. And, of course, Wanye Thomas started in his spot.
Yeah, it wasn't because he was sick?
Well, I mean, it was
a mixture of both.
My observation is he was trying to move on the field early. This is before everybody gets out there and starts their light jogging and stuff like that, or even before Brandon Aubrey, the kicker, goes out there and does his visualization techniques. This was right when we arrived at the stadium. He was out there and just trying to get a feel of whether how that ankle was doing.
No, thanks for that. Back to James Cook. Y'all, rewatching the game and just seeing some of the stuff that they did defensively, I will say I do think you miss Hankins. You miss Hankins for various reasons. You are 100% correct about the edges and them not setting the edge or containing and getting pinned inside. But I will say that one thing about Hankins is his ability to two-gap successfully and give those guys time to get there and to sometimes drive some of those guys out to the edge and funnel them to the edges, it's not something to snuff at. So I do think you do miss him, but to your point, Buffalo did a lot of pinning and pulling. Mm-hmm. There were times that I just watched James Cook be so patient and just wait for our guys to get upfield and be overly aggressive and shoot the wrong gap. And he was just like, oh.
Yeah.
It literally was like X-Men when they have Quicksilver do the slow motion thing. And he's like, oh, give me this. Oh, cool. I'll see you. Like, it was... I'm laughing because I was so frustrated. But the patience that he used as he just watched our guys sometimes run past him or overshoot him, the way he was jumping, he literally jumped into gaps so well. His footwork was impeccable. Credit to Joe Brady again because he found favorable matchups. The touchdown on Damone Clark, getting him caught in coverage.
Yeah.
Joe Brady.
Yeah.
No, he was.
I wasn't aware of your game.
Well, this was only his fourth game.
I mean, I've heard great things about him.
But
LSU won a national championship.
Yes, heard great things about him. But this was just a clinic. This wasn't because don't get it twisted. It wasn't just effort. It wasn't just any of that. A lot of it was. I don't know if this is him finding favorable matchups across the defensive line and taking advantage of it. Mm-hmm. And so, listen, your linebackers, they did all that they could, but baby, their smallest offensive lineman is 350 pounds. Mm-hmm. He the only one that's light in the ass. Everybody else is way bigger than your DTs. Mm-hmm. And so, there's not much your linebackers can do when they're getting washed out of plays, driven down the field 10 yards with guards.
Yeah.
And tackles. Your D-line was out of position so many times I couldn't count anymore. And so for me, everybody needs to play their assignment, play their role, and help your teammate out, bro.
One of the, I believe it was one of the guards that drove Damone downfield 10 yards, and I was like...
He couldn't even do nothing.
He couldn't do anything. So when you are facing a team that's obviously have you outmatched with size, how do you even go about handling that? Because the Cowboys haven't seen a team that's just outplayed them like that other than San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah. Well, you got to tackle.
As far as been bigger than them.
They handled, now don't get me wrong, like there were several times in this game where there were some 3 and outs. Like they handled things pretty well, but it was, you're not winning on first down against them either. It was they just did whatever they wanted to do. I mean, the quarterback had 7 completions, but their offense was 76% rushing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you do at that point? But complementary football is a real thing. And the offense didn't help them out either. Offense had them on the field a lot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Offense had them out there. They were gassed. There was opportunities for the offense to be able to continue to drive the field, and we're going to get on them later. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's a collective loss because
teams,
and
special
with
teams, the blocked punt.
Absolutely.
The roughing the punter.
Yeah, because you put your defense right back out there after they got a 3 and out. So, as far as some of their penalties go, like the J-Ron Curse thing and the untimely, very untimely. Yeah. But I understood what Mike McCarthy was saying. That he was saying there's you have to find the balance of aggressiveness because looking at those plays. Those aren't penalties. Mm-hmm. However, they're penalties. Yeah. And it's just like, it was just, I know it was just very deflating for them to not be able to get off the field at any point in time And that's just was the story of the
You also look at the time of possession. I mean, defense was worn.
They were out there so much.
Buffalo won that one 35 minutes and 5 seconds. That's Dallas 24 minutes and 55 seconds. So... yeah, at that point, defense was worn.
Offense, you're going to get it too.
You know what makes me so sad is, so obviously we'll talk about the linebackers a little bit more throughout the week, but Damone Clark was flying all over the place, and he was the one guy that was like, man, he's trying until the very end, until he just can't anymore. And yes, there was a size difference there that was not working in his favor, but we're talking about effort earlier. And he was the one guy on defense that I was like, I can consistently see you trying to make an effort here. And it's so frustrating because what's the answer with that? How do you stack the box more when you're looking at such a thin linebacker room right now? I mean, really, going forward, what is your answer for that? And I think that's what I'm going to be most interested in seeing, how they respond to stacking that box a little bit more.
I think that was nerve. Because one thing that's Josh Allen is a threat down the field.
It is.
He played a fantastic game. Josh Allen.
He didn't have to do much.
Did you hear his
fantastic game?
Did you hear his great quote after the game?
I didn't know that was. I forgot I was on camera.
Only 15 pass attempts.
Like,
Tearing this cookie up.
Yeah, those. By the way, the thing with the cookies, these are cookies from the Cowboy Charter that bring in on Monday. But anyway, so after the game, Josh Allen, only 15 pass attempts, only 7 completions.
Fantastic.
And they were kind of joking. It's like, man, they didn't have to do your usual thing. And he says, I feel like the kid who didn't do anything in the class project but still got an A.
He make me so
And it's like
sick.
that. I used that for my thing for the Dallas Morning News today, sportsday.com, because I thought that perfectly encapsulated Buffalo's offense.
Yeah. It was all
not a team project.
Interesting. All right, ladies, we're going to go ahead and take our second break. You're watching Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
You know that sound anywhere. It's the crisp crunch of that first nacho chip. With its perfect cheese to sour cream ratio sitting atop a layer of delicious beans, it's a sip away from perfection. That's what we're looking for. Add a delicious, refreshing Pepsi and we've achieved absolute nacho nirvana. Because while you can pile those nachos high with every spicy, cheesy, savory topping, there's no topping a cool Pepsi finish. Nachos, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Frame-worthy family holiday photo with Santa at the Star, presented by Monument Realty. Santa Claus will be at his Cowboys-themed cottage at the Star District through December 24th. Visit thestardistrict.com/Santa for more information. It's very cute if you haven't seen it yet.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, now we got to switch gears, talk about this offense, y'all. Only 5 of 13 on third downs. Of course, you talked about the time of possession. They did not win that battle either. Rushing yards, only 89 on the ground. Total first downs, 14. That is a huge problem. Where do you feel the biggest area of concern was on Sunday? You can choose whichever position group. I was going to say offensive line because everything starts in the trenches. But you can go ahead if you want.
Yeah, the offensive line. I mean, obviously I did feel like when Zach Martin went out, so many T's.
Okay.
TJ Bass stepped in and he did what he could, to fill in. But once Zach Martin went out, it just felt worse. Buffalo has the ability to roll different guys out. They have a lot of different gentlemen they roll out, but their blitz packages were so effective in this game. And you also have to give credit to their secondary as well. Wasn't a bunch of separation there with this with the receivers at times, but one of the only bright spots of this game is that I think Tony Pollard is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Listen.
He hit some big runs.
I wish they would have been able to stick to the run, because obviously when you're down by 2 scores, you can't. Tony Pollard looks like he's about that action. So bright spot. But as far as the offensive line goes, it just wasn't good enough. Yeah. Like they were getting pushed. Your quarterback took so much punishment yesterday. I was scared.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, again, it was, some of the stuff was he was getting out and he was running or whatever. They was catching him sliding, but it was just a constant pressure he was under. And they put this shell. They like to play a lot of too high shell. when they don't, a team like this, the way that they play defense, this is how the 49ers play it too. They don't give you a lot of opportunities to take big shots. But when those opportunities are there, you have to nail them. You have to take advantage of those situations. And the Cowboys just never they couldn't take advantage in the run game. They couldn't take advantage in the deep shot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm playing forward. I'm jumping everything.
Yeah.
The Cowboys offense didn't do anything long enough or sustain drives long enough to make the Bills defense have to change what they were doing. And so they did it all day. They came downhill. They didn't give up anything horizontal. They tackled well. And yeah.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
The jumping routes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there are some days where the team that has the swagger and that's feeling it. And that was the Bills' defense, and particularly their secondary, because they won when the ball was out. They were the ones that were acting like it was theirs. Yeah. And there were too many times where, like, a Brandon Cooks is having to, I'm not talking about the shock play in the first drive, but I'm talking about where he's knocking the ball away to keep it from being intercepted. And so that's something that Cowboys fans are used to seeing from the Cowboys secondary this year. Instead, it was Buffalo yesterday. But I agree completely with Aisha in terms of the inability to sustain drives.
Yeah, and the pressure on Dak Prescott once again, and we talked about this earlier this season, which was an area of concern. I mean, 3 sacks, 4, 6, 7, 8 quarterback hits in this game. You cannot expect your quarterback to do much when that much pressure is just constantly coming at him. And then, the run game. It's so frustrating because you saw this run game start to have a heartbeat in the last couple of weeks, specifically with Rico and Tony. I thought against the Eagles, they did a fantastic job of distributing the ball enough between both of them to allow the run game to get its feet ready for this week. Yeah. And another downfall. Yes, you weren't able to really utilize the run game because you're getting behind on first down. You're making 3rd and long situations where you can't really have a significant run game at that point. So not winning in 1st and 2nd downs, creating 3rd and long situations, and then you can't even rely on the run game at that point. So you can't be consistent with it at that point. But then your receiving game as well, I mean, Dak can't do much when he has a defender in his face.
And they know you have to pass.
And you have to pass. And the longest pass in this game, 16 yards to CeeDee Lamb.
It was a pretty post, too. That's it.
Yeah. And it's just, you couldn't do much with everything, I think, trickling back to the offensive line. And yes, Zach Martin was out, and we did hear from Coach McCarthy today saying that he's hopeful for his availability on Sunday. We'll see what happens. But I mean, I think credit to TJ Bass for stepping in like he did. He, before the game, had taken 196 snaps prior, and he only had started 1 game. And I think he stepped in pretty seamlessly with what they were going against. But it is still very concerning because you talk about the continuity that this offensive line has been building in the last few weeks, and then you kind of just take a few steps back when you don't have your starters in anymore. And Zach Martin, it's Zach Martin. And I think everything you need to know about Zach Martin goes back to his play, protecting his quarterback, and reminding people, hey, you don't touch my quarterback. I don't care if I get penalized for it. Penalize me. You're not touching my quarterback. And as the penalty queen on this, I didn't mind that penalty.
It was the only penalty.
I didn't mind that one.
It was the only penalty that the Bills had called against them.
Yeah, and it was offset.
It was
offset.
It was offset by Zach.
Talk about playing clean football.
They really did.
They played clean football, and that was a word that Mike McCarthy used when he was talking about this game and how they wanted to go out there and play. Yeah. I'm just I'm really curious of what happens from here.
Yeah.
What happens from
here.
here.
Little stat for you, kind of piggybacking off of what Jess said. Dak was only able to complete 1 of his 6 attempts of 10-plus air yards. That was for the 16 yards. But they entered that game leading the league in big plays, and that's something that McCarthy talked about in the presser. They were 87 in big play differential. So, I don't know. Hopefully that's something that they can, of course it starts with the offensive line, but hopefully that's something that they can fix heading into Miami. But if y'all have to choose one thing, just one, that you want to be addressed for this week, what would it be? just one thing?
Tackling.
Okay.
Run defense.
Zone beaters.
Ooh, like that one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Might as well work them. People gonna try to do this again.
Yeah.
And again. And again.
Yeah,
and again.
and that was one of the themes last night in the locker room is, other teams are going to watch. We're going to see this until we take care of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
What about you?
I was gonna say run defense, but did you say that one already?
I mean, we can emphasize it. It was obviously an issue.
I'll try another one. I want to say fight. I want to see that fight back in this team. And that's something that was asked to Mike McCarthy. Do you feel like you guys are a team that can only play when you're ahead? And I don't think they are. I think they're a team that can fight and play well throughout all 4 quarters, but I didn't see that on Sunday. I want to see that heading into Miami and these other games because it's not going to get any easier. Oh my gosh.
Nicole's starting to like the team, guys.
It's the Christmas spirit.
She is. You are. You're
love
starting to fight.
Y'all are sick.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
All right, I'm gonna wrap this show. Y'all, we're wrapping up here on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!